Hello and welcome to episode 222 of Page One, the Writers Podcast. I'm Marco.
I'm Tarek.
And thanks for joining us for this podcast after our short break that we've had there. But we're coming back with a brilliant guest this week. If this is your first Page One, then please do take time to look at our back catalogue because we've had all sorts of brilliant guests. We've had authors, screenwriters, journalists, comedians. So there's bound to be someone that you're interested in there. So please do check that out if you haven't already. But as I say, this week we're kicking this new batch of episodes off with a really fun and really interesting guest.
Yeah, that's right. But this week we're chatting with the wonderful Julian Simpson, who's had a really eclectic writing journey. I think it's fair to say, kind of starting in the TV side of things, kind of self-made, got his foot in the door, and worked on some really big, high-profile shows like Spooks. And then he moved into the world of audio dramas, which we've chatted to a couple of people who've worked on audio dramas before. I've forgotten his name now, of course, when I come to say
Dark Mags.
Dark Mags is the one, the big one, of course. But Julian has done some wonderful work. The Lovecraft Investigation podcast series on BBC Sounds is maybe the one he's most famous for, I think. That's what I know him for anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's really... It's brilliant. It's just a brilliant concept. It's sort of taking that serial true crime type of podcast, but putting it with the Lovecraft mythos, and it really works brilliantly. So if you've not listened to that before, do that. And he's got a Kickstarter on right now for a new batch of Lovecraft Investigations episodes, specifically looking at the 20th century occultist Aleister Crowley, or Crowley, I'm not sure how you say it. But it is, you can check that out. We'll put a link in the bio to that. But it's a really interesting chat from how he got his money to make his first film to the big Hollywood star that he had signed for a film that he didn't end up making.
This close to getting that.
There's lots of good stories. And also, chat about that dreaded thing in many creator circles, AI and stuff like that, and how he views that. And so we go everywhere with this chat. So we will get straight into it, and then we'll be back at the end of the podcast with a bit more chat and to let you know about next week's guest.
But for now, on with the podcast.
I always start the podcast with the same question because it's an easy way in, which is, did you always want to be a writer?
Good question. No, never wanted to be a writer.
Okay, bye.
I was kind of good at it at school. But no, I always wanted to be a director. And probably not since I was like 8 or whatever, but at a certain point I decided I wanted to be a director. And I'd left school, I didn't go to university, I was working in an office job. And I realized that one of those moments where you just kind of go, I could just stay here forever. Like, there's a career path here, and that could be my life, but I don't want it to be my life. And I'm like 19 years old going, I don't want to do this forever. Mm-hmm. I know what I want to do, but I can't see a route to doing it. So the simplest thing to do, although not even simple, the only thing I could think of to do was to make a short film. Yeah. And so I was like, great. And I put the wheels in motion, even to the extent it's a bit like doing your first Kickstarter, actually, where you just kind of go, okay, let's just do it.
Yeah.
So I quit my job, enrolled in university because I'd never been, but I could get into one locally. Enrolled, and those were the days where you got a student grant and a student loan. So I enrolled, filled in the forms, got the money, never turned up to the lectures, and had enough money to make a short film. And I was like, great, now I need to go get a crew. And I went to some film schools around here and put notices up on the board, and people started phoning me, because before email and stuff, phoning me and going, I can do sound or I can do camera. And I was like, okay, this is all working. Mm-hmm. And then they were like, what's the script? Can we see the script? And I was like, oh, I see the problem with this plan. And so that was the necessity of writing that first script was what not like I got bitten by the bug really, but I was like, okay, I can do this. And I spent a long time, and I still do direct, and I spent a long time kind of resisting the label of writer.
Okay.
And I think that's partly because of how, at the time, it's got a little bit better. It's just such a powerless position to be in screenwriting.
Yeah.
Or in, film and television. To be a writer. It's better in American television. It's terrible in American film. All well paid. It's a champagne problem, but you kind of want to be the person everyone thinks was responsible for it, and no one really thinks the writer was responsible.
Okay. Yeah. and also exactly. The writer is often the forgotten person in all this. When people talk about TV shows or film or whatever, they'll talk about the actors and they'll talk about the director.
Yeah.
And that's about it. You won't hear about anyone else really.
Yeah. And what I find that fascinating, because I think talking about the director in film is really quite valid because of the amount of influence they have over the thing. When people start talking about television directors, I'm always kind of like, what do you think? Have you any idea how little power those guys have?
Mm-hmm. Well, especially the shows where they bring in someone who does an episode of something and then goes away and they're cycling through someone different every week, and they don't have any oversight over the whole series or the season or anything. Exactly. Yeah.
No, I mean, you can definitely have an influence, and you can definitely be good at it, and there are some people who are amazing at it, but you're not really. You're not creating anything.
No, you're kind of brought in to film a certain style and to keep it going to fit the
exactly.
mold. But you obviously, that feature film that you went on to make, that was The Criminal, right? That was that film you made.
God, yes. Let's scrape that bottom of that barrel.
I mean, obviously, as you say, you got bitten by that kind of writing bug there, because you then started to move into UK TV shows after that. So what was your path into that?
Well, I was going to do more short. I enjoyed doing the short film, and it didn't do anything. I went to a couple of festivals and no one paid much attention to it, and I sent it out back then. And we're in the late, when are we? Mid-90s probably. You can make a really good living as a commercials director.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so I sent the short film out to those but it wasn't that kind of thing. It wasn't glossy. So it didn't work. I was going to do some more shorts, and then I kind of sat down with the guy who edited the short and ended up being a producer and editor on The Criminal, who basically went, look, we can put together more shorts, but it's going to take forever because there's no money in financing short films. Someone gives you money, they never see it again. They might as well set fire to it. Whereas if you wrote a feature, maybe that is a path to go down, because then we know that people make money out of those, so it's easier to get finance. So I was like, okay, great, I'll write a feature. That doesn't seem like a problem. It took a long time to do, and took a long time to put together. And we got the feature made, we got the movie released. I kind of went, oh, this is me now. I'm going to Hollywood, and I'll buy a house with a pool and a Ferrari, and this is all going to be great. And I went to. I did go out to Hollywood a few times. I had a second movie set up with a lead actor who I was convinced was going to be a big deal.
Okay.
And I could not convince any financiers that he was going to be a big deal.
Please tell me this person is now a big deal.
It's Hugh Jackman.
What?
Yeah. So I had my second movie set with Hugh. And he had X-Men 1 he'd made X-Men 1, but it hadn't been released yet.
Right, okay.
And we could not get the thing off the ground at all. And we were looking for $10 million to make a movie.
Right, okay.
And we couldn't get it done with Hugh.
What sort of film was it? What was it? Was it?
It was a heist movie.
Oh, okay,
it was a kind of actiony heist movie, European. It was cool, actually. But we did get American finance, and then that company went bust, at which point Hugh's agency, very sensibly, his American agents were like, we're getting massive offers in from big movies and big Broadway stuff and everything because X-Men's come out now. And yet he's committed to doing your film and he still wants to do it. Could you please tell him it's not going to happen so that we can move on? So I did. I was like, look, you go do the big stuff. Go do the big stuff. So at that point I was like, oh, I don't know what to do now. And I thought, well, maybe I'll work in TV for a bit. Which seemed equal. I thought it was going to be easier. I was like, okay, fine, I'll do television. And TV was like, no, you're not going to do television because you've done one movie and we're television people. We don't know what we're looking at. And we also don't really trust. It's not a track record. Having done one thing is not a track record. You know, it's a point on a graph, but it's not. It doesn't tell us which direction the graph is going. So I did a feature film, had another one set up with Hugh Jackman that fell through, and then very quickly found myself in debt and on the dole for a few years until I started getting to write television. And I think the first thing I properly wrote, I got hired by the BBC to do Treasure Island, but it fell through. Then I wrote an Inspector Linley mystery, an episode of that, which was super fun, actually. And I said to the executive producer, who I had just met, I would like to direct one of these. And she went, no, it's not going to happen. And I went, I'll tell you what, if you like my script, will you let me direct one further down the series? And she kind of went, well, no, but if I really like it, we'll think about it. I just kept badgering her. And eventually she kind of went, okay, fine. Yes, I like your script. That was episode 1 of a series, I think. And they did 4 feature length episodes a season. And so she gave me episode 4 to direct. So I got to do that. And then from there, I got introduced onto something else. I did a show called Murder Prevention, I think. And then I ended up on Spooks. I can't even remember the order of things, but it was, then there was a kind of role of writing and directing stuff.
And when you say that you were able to get into the Inspector Lindsay, etc. stuff with the BBC, what were you doing to get? Were you kind of sending them spec stuff? Were you applying through courses? What was your avenue to get noticed by them?
So I'm trying to think what came first. You guys don't have IMDb in front of you, do you?
Not in front of us. We can pull up.
I'll remember, because I think there might be a route through a show I did for Channel 5 called Murder Prevention. So I think I did a short film for BBC Three's launch, which was, I worked with great actors on that, and had a really good time. And then I did a show, I think then I did a Channel 5 show called Murder Prevention. And I was the second director in the series. And the first director was a guy called Justin Chadwick. He made movies like The Other Palinka and stuff and was great.
Okay.
And Justin was hanging around the set when I was shooting and basically went, what are you doing next? And I was like, nothing, I don't know. I fluked my way into this job. Who knows? And he was like, okay, you need to talk to this person at the BBC. I need to talk to the Spooks people for you. He'd done those shows.
Right.
And so he made calls, and then people called me and were like, can you come and see us about doing Inspector Linley? Can you come and see us about doing Spooks? So it's very much down to Justin, actually.
And when you sort of jumping back, I guess, to that first, when you had set up that film and then realized you needed a script, how did you write that? Did you have example scripts? Did you get books? How did you know the format?
I don't recall having any notion of the format. I know that I had a Windows, like a 386 Windows PC with 100 megabyte hard drive, it was a second-hand computer. And 100 megabytes was like, oh my God, how big? This is huge. And I had a copy of Word that I very much suspect was a pirate copy from the office that I was working in. and there was no internet. So I don't know how I would have seen a screenplay. I'd seen a lot of stage plays at French's and stuff, and I knew what they looked like. I must have seen a screenplay. I must have seen one printed in a book or something. I remember painstakingly setting up the tabs in Word so that I could go from character to dialogue to action, and it would all look right. It probably wasn't right, but it was an approximation. It kind of came out at a page a minute. I don't remember where. I mean, I think it might have been. Oh, I might have been actually. I would have had at that point how-to books. I don't think I would have had any of the writing books, but there was a book called Making Movies. I'm looking to see if I can see it on the shelf. It's called Making Movies by some guy who was something to do with Night of the Living Dead and stuff, and it was a kind of soup to nuts how to make an independent movie. And I think in that he had an example script page of this is what script should look like.
Okay, cool.
And I probably took it from there.
And what is your
Sidney
approach?
Lumet, in fact, there's a book called Making Movies by Sidney Lumet. Is it?
Yes, and that book is amazing.
Yeah.
But that's called Movie Making Masterclass. No, that's Making Movies. So this is not that. That book is, bar none, one of the best books about making films ever, the Sidney Lumet book.
Right.
Along with Alexander McKendrick's book, which is extraordinary for writers and directors. No, this was called Making Movies, but it was by John somebody. I will send you I will follow up.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's still in print. I suspect it's not still in print because it talks about making a movie in Super 8. I mean, it's not like, there's nothing digital about that book at all.
Yeah. But it's just interesting because obviously we've spoken to screenwriters before. Tarek and I have written screenplays ourselves as well, obviously the format is very important in terms of how it's built, but also what you put into a script is all this show don't tell, but it's very, very different from writing a book, I guess is what I'm driving at. You've got to be pretty sparse with the description that you're putting in there, and yet still get the thing across. And if you hadn't read a lot of scripts, it's just quite amazing that you were able to. Although I suppose for your first one, you're pulling it together for yourself, but even so, it's.
I mean, yeah, I think that's true, but I didn't have a background in writing prose. So I probably had a natural inclination to write as few words as possible to get the idea across, right? Because that's, if you don't really want to write, you're not going to go overboard.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I latterly, it's taken a long time. I take issue with the formatting thing and the brevity thing to an extent. I think you can break all of those rules as long as the people reading a script know that you're breaking the rule rather than you didn't know the rule.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm writing a movie at the moment that's written in first person and has loads and loads of interior monologue, but it's calibrated in such a way that it tells the reader more than they would ordinarily know about what's inside a character's head, but it is also actable. So that the actor can read it and go, okay, even though I'm not saying much in this scene, I understand what it is that I'm doing.
Okay, that's cool.
But I wouldn't advise that for anyone who was doing it first time out.
Yeah.
And what is your approach when you do sit down to write these scripts, and comparing now to when you're first starting out back then, what is it a case of just sit down, write the thing, do a redraft? Do you kind of do you show it to people? Do you kind of agonize over stuff? Do you know where you're going with it? Is it how do you pull the script together?
All good questions. So, I think each project's slightly different, but that short film took me weeks to write, and it was 15 pages long, which is pathetic, but it took me weeks. The Criminal was, I guess, 100 pages. And then I have memories of months and months and months of just sitting down at a desk every morning and writing. I don't know what the hell I was doing. Like, how did it take that long? But I think I was working out the story, and I think it went through a lot of permutations. I've never been a big planner. And I actually kind of hate planning, and that it puts me at odds with people sometimes who want to see too much up front in terms of outlines and treatments and stuff, because I'm like, this is no fun for me. I have to explore it. I would like for myself, if I'm writing my own thing, I need to know what it is. I don't necessarily need to know where it goes, but I don't start typing normally until I know how it starts, who the character is, what they want, what's stopping them, blah, blah, blah. And I have a couple of ideas for things that could happen, and a very good idea of tone. And then I'm like, let's put the character in the situation and see what happens. I for some reason it's a block for me. I can't do that with a diagram or in a notebook. I have to do it in a screenplay.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, obviously everyone's got a different approach. I between Tarek and I lean towards sort of planning stuff, but I know Tarek, you don't, and you like twisty crime thrillers, but you like to discover it as you're writing.
Yeah. I because I think that one of the easiest ways for me to make sure that the thing that I'm doing is character led and that it's character based is to let the characters lead it. So rather than going, this is what I've designated on this piece of card happens next. If a character walks into the room and decides to leave through a different door, I'm going to follow them and see where they're going and see what's through that door, rather than go, okay, delete, let's take them back through the door that I hoped they were going to go through.
Okay. And is your writing approach different if it's something that you know you're going to be directing as well? Like, do you take shortcuts and stuff because you don't need to give anyone else directions?
Well, no, because you still have to sell the thing to whoever's reading it.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? It's like it still has to stand up as a piece because they've got to finance it or agree to green light it or whatever. So you're still having to do that. And I've never been very good at letting someone else. So for example, I've directed stuff that other people have written. I don't have a problem with that. I have written stuff that other people have directed, but I've never seen anything that someone else directed of mine.
Okay.
All right.
Never watched it. I don't want to know what they did. I basically don't want to know what they screwed up.
Right. Okay.
I don't want to know what they misunderstood. I don't want to see the terrible performances they got and how the actors read the lines wrong. I don't want to see a version of it that's not what I had in my head.
Yeah. Okay. It's like the Aaron Sorkin approach when after he left West Wing, he didn't watch another episode because he said, I don't want to see. I think he was like, I don't want to see them ruining my show, and also I don't want to see them doing a better job than I did, because that's either
he
way.
Wasn't in any danger of seeing them do a better job than he. But yeah, I think it's partly that. It's just, I remember being in the pub with that during that. I'd written that first Linley script and I had gone off and they were filming it, and I was in a pub with a bunch of actors, and some actors came in who were in that episode of Linley that I'd written. And I said, I wrote the thing that you're filming at the moment. And they were like, all right. And I said, how's it going? And they were like, I've actually had to change quite a bit. I'm sorry, what have you've done what? And I'm kind of cool with actors changing stuff. I was like, what have you changed? And they were like, I've got this speech so we just kind of cut that. I'm like, okay, the story's broken now. How are you going to fix that?
Ruined it.
and it, the other thing that often comes through when we're spoken with screenwriters is that people, I think, just working in TV or film, is that you have to be prepared to write stuff that isn't going to get made a lot of the time.
All the time.
Which is a bit different from books once you're obviously some books won't get published that get written or whatever, but
yeah,
it's a slightly different thing. It just seems it's much more normal that you just accept, I've written this script, it's not going anywhere, I'll move on to the next one, sort of a thing.
Yeah, and but also I think that it bruises and damages a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, and weirdly enough, I was talking to another writer about this the other day, and we both have the same attitude, which is that as soon as it leaves my desk, it's left my head.
Right.
I do not think about it beyond this. If I'm trying to direct something, if I'm trying to get something made for myself, that's a slightly different thing. But if you've asked me to write you an episode of television or a movie, then as soon as I've sent it off and we're done, I'm not thinking about whether or not you're going to get it made.
Okay.
That is neither here nor there to me. I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
I don't want to come to set. I don't want to, do you know what I mean? It's like, go and do your thing. It's great. But I'm not investing any of my emotional time in your struggle to get this script made. I mean, you still get it, especially in Hollywood. They call you up and they're like, "Oh, we've sent your script to these 3 directors." I'm like, "Great, I don't care. Send me a check if you make it, by all means." But but I don't. It doesn't really matter to me beyond the obvious kind of PR and marketing aspect of it, where you're in the next meeting and you're like, "Oh yeah, director X is reading my last script," and that impresses someone in a job interview.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I don't. I think probably the ratio of made to not made it's going to be 90% doesn't get made.
Yeah.
And that's probably conservative. It's probably close to 95%.
Yeah.
And sometimes that stuff you really cared about, spec scripts you wrote that you wanted to direct or you were desperate to get made because you felt like it was a great show or a great movie, and it just never happens. Other times it's stuff that, I've had stuff with big movie stars where they were like, this is our next movie. We're going to make this movie. And then something goes wrong and it never happens.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't tie your emotional well-being to it. I think, and this is why I was talking to this other writer about, your emotional well-being has to be tied to, did I do a good job? When that thing left my desk, was it as good as I can make it?
Okay.
If it was, then great, and that's the job, and then on to the next one. I think that answers the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that. No, but I think that sounds like a very healthy way to approach it. But I can also see that it can be difficult. I imagine, especially when you're starting out in that world, it can be a difficult thing to adjust to.
It's hard, and there's also a flip side to it, which is why we're all in therapy, which is that. If you are not going to be devastated by something not getting made, you're also not going to be celebrating when something does get made.
Yeah.
You're on a flat line, generally. It's left my desk, it's left my mind, I'm moving on. I get enormous amounts of pleasure. You would not know it by looking at me because I haven't done any writing for the last few days because of this Kickstarter, but I get, when it's going well, an enormous amount of pleasure out of writing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I require, as long as it's also paying my rent. It's, that's the emotional well-being that I need. Mm-hmm. And I've recently been writing a novel for the first time. And I have no anticipation of that ever seeing the light of day, but I would like to finish it. And that process is just delightful because I'm not even thinking about executives and directors and actors or anything like that. It's just like, I'm just really enjoying typing again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you don't have limitations in prose, I suppose, in the way that you would with scripts. You don't have to think about budgets and stuff like that. Yeah.
No.
And you moved into the world of audio dramas. I think I read on your website it was when TV work started to dry up a bit, and you set up the storytelling company Storypunk.
Kind of.
Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I definitely got into audio by accident, but it wasn't that kind of dramatic. It was, I had a brilliant script editor on BBC, on the Treasure Island that I was that we were trying to get made at the BBC, but didn't end up happening. Mm-hmm. The script editor on that was a woman called Lisa Osborne, who's now a big TV producer. Back then, she was a script editor for BBC Drama, but also worked as a freelancer on Radio 4, making audio dramas, with a woman called Karen Rose at Sweet Talk, who I've done all of my stuff with. And Lisa, she and I got on very well, and she said, do you want to write a 10-minute thing for Radio 4? So I was like, sure, because it was a challenge, because I'm like, oh, okay, without pictures, this is going to be interesting. Mm-hmm. So I wrote a 10-minute radio piece, and I haven't told this story very often, actually. I wrote this 10-minute radio piece. I'm used to directing by now, kind of, and I'm used to working in television. I write this 10-minute radio piece, and no one seems bothered. No one wants to give me any notes. Everything seems fine. And I go into this place, and we're recording kind of in a studio. And the sound guy is a dick. He's just really grumpy with me. And then subsequently, when we're editing it and stuff, I'm going, can we do this? Can we change this? Can we do that? And he was just really, really short with me. And I was like, what's this guy's problem? And looking back, it was me having a complete, like, treating the whole thing like a television production and going, I'm in charge, do as you're told. And him going, I don't even know why this fucking guy is here, because we don't normally have these people in the room. And I reminded him of it recently because he's been the sound guy on everything we've done. And he's brilliant. Absolutely amazing. And nothing that we've done of any note, not Aldrich Kemp, not Lovecraft Investigations, nothing that we've done of any note. We've got awards on our shelves. Everything is entirely down to how good he is at his job. And my first impression of him was, he's a dick. And it was me, and it was so lucky that we were able that the Karen and Lisa, the producers, kind of persisted in bashing us together to the point he hasn't changed. He's exactly the same. He's incredibly easygoing, incredibly nice to work with, but he knows sound very, very well. So when you ask him for something stupid, he's going to say that can't be done. And I was 28, 29 years old or whatever at the time going, don't tell me what can't be done. And he's like, but he was right. Just physics has stopped us from doing the thing you wanted to do. So from there, to answer your question, we did a 10-minute thing, and then I did a longer thing called Fragments. And every year, Radio 4 would just come along and go, do another one, do another one, do another one. Until we got to Lovecraft Investigations, which we pitched to them as an idea, the Case of Charles Dexter Ward, the first series, as an idea of taking Lovecraft, modernizing it, and doing it in a kind of serial, true crime kind of format. We pitched to the BBC and they didn't want it. And there was no other game in town to get audio made. And then BBC Sounds launched. And we pitched to BBC Sounds and we were like, you're doing podcasts. We're a podcast. Pretend we're a podcast. Can we make this? And BBC Sounds said, yeah. We don't really know what it is, but it doesn't seem to be out of our wheelhouse. Give it a go. We like the idea. And so the glorious thing, which writers will appreciate if they've done audio, and we'll just be envious of if they haven't done audio, is that when you work for those guys, they say, you pitch them the idea, they say yes, ideally, and they never read anything after that. You don't send them a script, you don't show them, play them a cut, nothing. Their involvement with you ends when they say yes to the project, and then they listen to it when it goes out.
And do they fund it, or do they study to have a production company?
They completely finance it. Oh yeah, okay. They write the check, they get it made, but they don't tell you how to do it. So the only interaction you have is right towards the end. Lawyers have to listen to it in case you've slandered somebody or committed some kind of crime. Yeah. But no. So it's an incredibly startlingly free environment working for BBC Audio, because you get a blank canvas and no interference, and that's also kind of terrifying, because especially when you're starting out, you're like, but what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I wanted to ask you about writing for audio, you shifted into this world of audio dramas from TV and film, and it's obviously a very different beast because obviously there's no visuals, so you're writing, everything has to be done through sound effects, etc. And I've certainly listened to a lot of radio dramas and kind of audio book stuff which has been done in a quite clumsily, where the person's almost saying what's happening. Yeah, exactly. And it's like nobody would talk like this. This is a very clumsy. It doesn't feel right. Whereas I've listened to really good ones, and it's been done through sound effects and just a really good speech and dialogue that kind of lets you know what's going on without having to explain it. And that feels like it's a real art to writing audio drama as well.
It is. I think it depends where you come from, because for me, coming out of film and television, it struck me as. So there's a couple of things that fed into this. One is that I did not, nor have I ever really listened to audio drama, which would seem to be a handicap, and yet actually I think it just means that I don't know what's not possible. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have an expectation of what radio drama should sound like when I started doing it. I just was like, it's me telling a story, but I don't have pictures. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But the main thing for me has always been, as close as possible, can we get the characters to talk like they would in a movie? I assume that we can see what they see, mm-hmm. and let's have them talk normally, and then in the stage directions, let's figure out how to communicate what we would be pointing a camera at with very specific and precise sound cues. So that we can, there's the example we always use, which was kind of just an amazing idea for David Thomas, the sound guy who I had the strange startup with. In Aldrich Kemp season 2, there is a sequence where the hero Clara Page is in Lagos in Nigeria. And she goes into an office building. She goes up the elevator. She comes out on the 15th floor or whatever, goes into a room where she thinks she's going to be meeting somebody, realizes that it's a trap, realizes people are coming to kill her, and realizes that the building is about to explode. And as the people trying to kill her break into the room that she's in, someone else, I can't remember exactly this situation, but someone else comes in, shoots some of the people, grabs our heroine, throws her out the window, and they base jump out over Lagos. And we managed to do it without anyone ever saying what was happening.
Brilliant. That's very cool. And I can see your argument of coming to that blind.
There's little cheats that you have to do. You have to slightly over narrate some things, but not in terms of describing like, oh my God, I can't believe you just came through that window. But it has to, you have to have the smash and where did you come from? Or who are you? You note that there are other people there. One of the things that Karen Rose told me early on, which was a mistake I kept making in audio, which is extraordinary when you think about it, was I remember going through a schedule. We were about to record something and we were going through a schedule and I went, oh my God, where's this actor? They're not in today. And she's like, no, they're not. And I was like, they're in every scene. How are they not in today? And she went, okay, if they don't speak, they're not in the scene. You might think they're in the scene, but no one will ever know. They will have to be there if they don't speak. And in the last Aldrich Kemp season, the one that just came out earlier or late last year, I remembered that and I said to her, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm putting a character in who can't speak. And we did a character called Elias Story, who for security reasons will not speak and communicates only through sign language. Just to prove that you could actually have a character in there who no one voices.
That's audio drama on hard mode, I feel like.
Yeah, that's right.
But the thing is, I think though that's a really good point though, because I think that the audio dramas that you're talking about, where things are like, here we are in the garden and you can hear the birds sing.
Yes.
I can't believe you're tying up
audio
this
drama on easy. And you don't ever want to be doing anything on easy.
Yeah, I think that's right. It draws you in. I mean, I absolutely love the Lovecraft Investigations, and obviously, sort of you described it there as a sort of modern take on the mythos in a sort of true crime serial type format. Did you have, obviously the Lovecraft and then the mythos around it has been developed by others since then, but did you have fun playing in that sandbox? Is
enormous fun playing in the sandbox. Yeah, I mean, it's insane. So I didn't have any aspirations for it to run more than one season, or for it to be a kind of continuing thing. Even when we got season 2, I thought it was going to be a separate story originally. But The Case of Charles Dexter Ward was a long-ish Lovecraft story. It's basically a novella. And it has this section in the middle of it, which is a kind of recounting of a thing that's happened in the past with the witch trials and stuff in Massachusetts. I don't even mention Salem, but it's there. And it's digging out history. So I was like, okay, there is stuff to be found out here for a researcher. If it's true crime, there is stuff here to be investigated and pulled out. But I don't want to do Massachusetts in the 1600s, so we're going to have to modernize that. And we found witchcraft in the 20th century in England, and Gerald Gardner and Aleister Crowley and all of that stuff. But so transposing the mythos was really interesting. But actually, the backstop of the real mythos is what has, I think, really held the show up. Like propped it up in a good way, in the sense that it would be easy to go down conspiracy rabbit holes and to make it kind of parochially modern. But the fact that you keep reminding yourself as a writer and you keep reminding the audience that somewhere in the background is a cosmic horror being that's slumbering and will basically, absorb the world if anyone lets him wake up. And that there are a bunch of people running around who don't get that properly and think it would be a good idea to wake him up. That awful, distant cosmic horror is just a really interesting ingredient for me. Because it just makes the whole thing feel epic. And what I love about the Lovecraft mythos and how much you can play with it in the modern day is that you can go from the very small to the very big with your stories, and you will never be too big for the mythos.
Yeah, that's right.
But at the same time, you can tell a story that starts with, a strange thing you saw on the street and can turn into a huge conspiracy.
Yeah, I think that is it's a fascinating. I actually only really started to get into the Lovecraft stuff relatively recently, a few years ago, and
I don't think I was that far ahead of you. I mean, I read a little bit at school, and then it was only around that time that I started to look back at it and kind of went, oh, this is like the Godfather of everything.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's it. It's sort of,
the mad, paranoid, racist Godfather of everything.
Absolutely.
The influence he has over stuff now is bonkers. It's crazy.
Yeah. And yet, what's fascinating to me is you can't really get anything proper Lovecraftian made.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
They want stuff that's influenced by, but the minute you go, and then there's a thing with 7 eyes and tentacles. No.
Yeah, that's right. No Shoggoths here.
What's your views on the rise of AI? From especially from an audiobook drama, is that something which you kind of worry is something which might come in and start for acting, etc.?
Oh, this is a good question. I was thinking about that this morning without realizing I was going to actually have to answer the question today. So I'm relatively agnostic about AI. But it depends on our definition of AI, because there are tools that we use when we're doing sound audio production, for example, that are that enable us. We will always we record on location. So you need to know that. We always record on location. We never record in a soundproof studio. So we're always out and about on location. And therefore, you get planes and cars and birds and things that you don't want, depending on where you are. You're like, we're pretending to be at night and there's a flock of birds flying around. It's stuff that interrupts you. Now, we will always record until we think we've got a clean take. But every now and again you go, we did get a clean take, but the earlier take with the plane on it or the earlier take with that van going by is better. Mm-hmm. A few years ago, you just couldn't have used it because it wouldn't match and you were editing it and the van's going to come in and out of the edit. It can't be done. Nowadays, there are tools, machine learning tools that can lift that van out of there or lift that plane out of there or take those birds out. And we'll use those. But we're not. I don't feel like we're putting anyone out of a job because the job that's doing didn't exist previously. And it's a technician using a tool, which to me is like, with the exception of leaf blowers, which are the work of the devil, all of our tools have really got better as people, as we've evolved as a society, right? You want an electric drill rather than a manual drill, ideally. And this is the tool that is a better version than the previous tool. And I don't have a problem with that. And I don't think it's putting anyone out of work. And I don't, actually the opposite. People writing that stuff are in, that's their job. I've never found any use for it as a writer. And I have explored every permutation of what it can do. But it can't do anything useful to me. And I don't feel threatened by it because it's... because it doesn't think. It's not as advanced as the people who are selling it to us say it is.
Yeah.
And it can't do any kind of iterative thinking, and it can't draw conclusions. It can't have emotions or imagine things or make leaps. It can't do any of those things. So it's not really a threat to writers. I think from the ability to create voices out of nothing, basically to be able to type and have a famous person or a reasonable simulation of a human being say the words that you've typed is useful. We're going to see a lot of that. We're going to start seeing a lot of audio fiction, especially, that has basically been typed into a machine and then someone's pressed a button and actors in inverted commas have spoken it aloud. And sometimes we're not going to be able to tell it wasn't real. It's going to get good enough that you're not going to be able to tell. And I kind of don't care because when you pick a book off a shelf, when you sit down to read a novel, one of the things that's unconsciously going on is that you feel that the person who wrote the book is talking to you. There is a connection between you. If you pick a book off a shelf, a novel, however good it looks, if it said written by AI underneath, you'd be like, I'm not really interested in what AI thinks about the world. So I'm not going to feel that connection. Now, obviously you can fake that and not have the written by AI sticker on it. But I think ultimately when we have all the actors, when we're recording audio, we have all the actors in one place and they are acting with each other live and we're recording it. And however much you might be able to simulate their voices, you cannot simulate the things that I, as a writer and director, and they as actors, weren't predicting were going to happen.
Yeah.
Those quirky line readings, that weird interruption, that moment where someone had an idea, that's not going to happen with AI.
Yeah.
And I kind of think that the kind of people who... I wrote a whole thing about fiction as warfare at the weekend, but the kind of people who want that to happen are lazy thinkers. And I don't think that no artist is prepared to put down their paintbrushes because they can now press a button and generate a piece of art. That is not why you do it. And there will always be serious people performing and writing and directing and writing novels and painting pictures. That's something that people like to do. The greedy and the the greedy and the stupid will make and consume AI content, and kind of good luck to them. And it might make our stuff more niche, but at the same time, I'm looking at, Netflix's movie output most of the time and going, I don't know if that was written by AI. It might have been. There's no reason why it couldn't have been.
Yeah.
There's no humanity's been left in this. So
no, it's true. And I think you're right. I think a big thing is that they, certainly at the moment anyway, they massively oversell what these things can do.
I agree.
And every day you see examples of it being complete nonsense that it comes out.
It doesn't do. I mean, I've one of the first things I always do when a new platform comes out, like ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or any of these things that are meant to be amazing for research, I just put my name in and go, who is the writer Julian Simpson? Send. And then I get a CV back that I recognize.
Yeah.
But I know the facts of my life and I know this is incorrect. So I'm like, well, now I can't trust anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
That I don't know about, because I know that you're wrong about stuff I do know about. So this is a broken model to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that I do obviously think that their scraping of people's work without payment or permission is just theft.
Yeah.
And I find it extraordinary and hilarious when the Chinese AI thing was released and suddenly all the American AI companies were like, oh my God, I think they might have stolen some of our code.
Yeah, exactly. Suddenly it mattered then.
Yeah.
But this is something that has been said a lot, is that they claim that what we're doing, what they're scraping from us, has no value. That they're just taking, there's no intrinsic value, so they're not paying for it. And yet you steal 3 lines of their code and see how fast they put you in court.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
Very true.
When their code, on the face of it, with the inability for any of these models to actually do the thing they're meant to be doing, is the genuinely worthless aspect.
100%.
Sorry, I get a bit militant about AI because actually, weirdly enough, I quite like it. I like the idea of it. I like the AI tools that we use in audio and stuff. I think are amazing. AI tools that you can use with visuals, to do a really quick luminance mask or something on Photoshop.
Yeah.
Is extraordinary. It's just handy, but that's making the job that you were doing. It's going from hand sewing to a sewing machine.
Yeah,
it's like making the job that you were doing anyway a little bit easier.
Using Word rather than writing something down it feels like a tool.
Technology will always improve, and tools are useful, but
absolutely,
they shouldn't. There's a leap from there to saying, right, I've got an idea, I'll write a book by typing in a sentence and it'll pump out
exactly right. And I think that's the same thing as going, I've got an idea for a picture, I can type it in and it'll show me the picture, and you go, but it's not Cartier-Bresson, it's not Van Gogh, it's not
exactly. So, I mean, you've mentioned it a couple of times. Obviously, we were talking about the Lovecraft Investigations, but you do have, at the time of recording, the Kickstarter is soon to launch of the Crowley
series. Less than 24 hours away.
There you go.
Oh, exciting!
So, do you want to tell us a bit about the campaign?
Yes. So, Lovecraft Investigations ran for 4 seasons on the BBC. First 3 seasons went swimmingly well. No interference, really, really good. I'm very happy with them. And we were going to finish after 3 seasons. And then we decided to do a 4th season. And the BBC weren't quite ready for it, but they were happy to do it. They were very accommodating, but they had requirements. They were like, it's got to fit into a Radio 4 schedule now. It has to be this length. It was much more prescriptive.
Yeah.
And it didn't work very well, I don't think, season 4. And I agreed to doing it that way, so it's my fault. But I think it was a limitation that I couldn't actually really properly embrace within the realm of what that show needs to be. So we parted company with the BBC on that show, and I've done other stuff with them since, and we'll do other stuff with them. But on those shows, we were like, okay, we set up a website. I was like, I want to do other stuff in this world. I love this universe we're building. I don't quite know what. And at the same time, I was talking to Richard McLean-Smith, who I had done work with before, who does a podcast called Unexplained, which is a non-fiction podcast that he writes and presents about weird things. Mm-hmm. One of the weird things he's talked about in a few of his episodes is Aleister Crowley. the 20th century occultist who kind of did everything. And we were talking about maybe doing an audio documentary about Crowley. And then we were talking about how it would work and what you would cover and how many episodes you'd need and how we'd get it done. And it all sounded good, but slightly dry. And then I was like, what if it wasn't a straight up documentary? What if we are presenting factual information about Aleister Crowley, but it's Kennedy and Hayward from the Lovecraft Investigations doing it. They've mentioned this guy in all the series so far. Now they've decided to do a deep dive into who Crowley was. They're going to present it. It's going to be entirely factual about Crowley, but we can grab in other people to talk about him. We can grab in Eleanor Peck, who's a big regular guest star in the show, who Nicola Walker plays. She can come in and talk about Crowley. We can have fun with it, and we can create the world that we always create and create the kind of atmosphere and the humor that the show has, with the one rule that we are going to be everything you learn about Aleister Crowley will be true, or at least factually correct. Like, you know, I can't tell you if he actually performed any real magic or not, but I can tell you he claimed to, and I can tell you where and when. So we're going to do, so we had that idea. We were like, that is the thing that brings it to life. 5 episodes, and we are going to Kickstarter with it so that we'll have total control over how to do it. All the same cast, all the same crew, everything that we would normally do. It's just the money's coming, instead of the BBC, it'll come hopefully from Kickstarter backers. And then we have a whole bunch of other stuff because I went a bit merch mad. And because I hadn't done a Kickstarter before, and I was kind of like, okay, so what would make me want to, you know, if I was a fan of this show, what do I want? And so I come up with a whole bunch of rewards that are things that I'm like, oh yeah, that would be, I'd buy that. That would be cool. Nice. And they're all kind of in-world things, and it's cool. I think we've got some good stuff. We've got a great artist called Carl Pugh, who's done a lot of key art, and is doing T-shirts and an art print and stuff for us. So I think it's going to be good. But by the time I don't know when this comes out.
It'll definitely come out during the campaign will still be on.
Which is great, because during means quick, go to the Kickstarter and save it.
Exactly.
Because, I have no idea whether, you know, by the time this comes out, I could either just be drinking somewhere, or you know, because
either way, you might be drinking somewhere.
And on the eve of it, having the interesting thing about the BBC, a bit like Netflix and Amazon and stuff, but they were the kind of originals, is they don't tell you how many people listen to your show. So I have no idea if I understand the Lovecraft Investigations is popular because of the contact I get from people, but I have no numbers to back it up.
Right.
So we're kind of just throwing
I'm fascinated, They withhold all this data from creators, don't they? It's interesting.
Yeah. So they hold it back. So we don't have it. So it's like throwing a pebble into a well. And you're just like, are we going to hear anything? I don't know. So the Kickstarter's that. Kickstarter is like, it's ambitious. It's a high cost show to make.
But you'll know exactly how many folk are interested in it, I suppose. It'll be a good gauge.
We'll find out. We'll find out just how uninterested people are.
And very soon. Is this going to be a bridge into the main next season of the Lovecraft Investigation?
So there's a whole thing I want to do. We've got some stretch goals on this Kickstarter, which get us another episode of my show Mythos, and a Lovecraft Investigations feature-length single show, like a story of the week adventure. And then we want to do Lovecraft season 5. And what everyone said to me about crowdfunding is you can't build up a decent list for crowdfunding until you've done crowdfunding.
Yeah.
So I was like, great. Okay, well, we know that Lovecraft Investigations season 5 is a more ambitious goal than Crowley. So let's get Crowley done. And in success, we'll have the momentum to get into. And I'm thinking maybe crowdfund season 5 in the autumn, but then I'm thinking we're not even going to have made Crowley by then. So maybe that's a bit rich. But I don't know. I mean, a lot of people seem interested. A lot of people are interested in season 5. And if season 5 can be big, but if season 5 can go back to being like what seasons 1 to 3 were, then that would be the thing that Kickstarter could do.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
No, that sounds very exciting.
Very exciting.
So, apart from obviously the Kickstarter is probably occupying all your mind right now.
All of it today, yeah.
What else are you working on in the near future?
So I'm setting up a movie at the moment. It's a low budget horror movie based on an audio drama that I wrote called Bad Memories, which is part of the Pleasant Green universe. And I've written a movie, and we're setting that up at the moment. I have a British TV show. I haven't done anything on British television for ages, and I have this British TV show that we are going out with at the moment, trying to get set up. We've got a big worldwide deal on it, and we're trying to get a domestic UK partner for it. I have new reps in the States, so they're going out with stuff to kind of get people excited about things. They're going out at the moment with a show that I wrote a few years ago that they love, and they're kind of like, how did this not get made? Let's go get that made. So they're trying to do that. Meanwhile, I'm finishing up a spec pilot for American television, meaning I'm not being paid and no one wants it and no one knows what it is yet. But I'm hoping that we can, get it out there. And I'm just embarking on, I'm running a novel, which I'm about 60,000 words into, which is good, I think.
That's
the hump.
You're over the 30,000 words is normally where people hit that wall.
Is that where you crash?
You're flying towards the finish line now.
Yeah. I think it's going to get to 90, 100. I think.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Like where I think the story goes.
What sort of you don't need to tell us, but what sort of genre is it? Or
it's in the same genre as the Aldrich Kemp shows, so it's kind of contemporary but 60s style spy-fi kind of.
Cool. That sounds awesome.
Book. I don't think it's honestly. I don't think it's going to be flying off the shelves. If I end up liking it enough, thinking it's good enough, I might go to a very small press with it, or even self-publish, or maybe just put it in a drawer, because I think that the thing for me, I've always wanted to be a novelist. That weirdly is something I wanted to be before film. Always wanted to be a novelist, but then I'm such a big reader that I kind of got to the point where I was like, I don't know that I want to see how the sausage is made. So maybe I need to write novels as a thing that I consume. But I kind of couldn't resist. So I think maybe that putting this one in the drawer to go, I have written a novel, will allow me to then go more seriously write a novel. If that makes sense.
Cool. Okay. Yeah.
No, definitely. Those were the main questions that we had for you, but we always like to end every podcast by asking our guests the same questions. The first of which is, what was the last book that you read?
Last book that I read was, can I have two? Because I think they're related.
Yeah,
The Bone Clocks and Slade House by David Mitchell.
Yeah, is Bone Clocks good? It's on my list to read.
It's my first David Mitchell, and I have now bought all the other David Mitchells, and I'm starting from the beginning. Okay. Nice. But I read Slade House straight after Bone Clocks because they are very, very related.
Okay.
And Slade House is a very slim little novella that just kind of relates to Bone Clocks, and I wanted to stay in that world.
Nice. Yeah,
Bone Clocks is amazing.
Cloud Atlas years ago and loved it. So
I haven't done Cloud Atlas.
It's brilliant. So,
yeah, I need to. I'm on Ghost Written at the moment, which I'm reading at the moment. I'm halfway through that, which is his first book.
Nice. And what about the last film that you watched?
Oh, I should know the answer to that. Oh, I do know the answer to that because my daughter's doing a classics A level, and that was my perfect excuse to persuade her to watch 300. That kind of movie, which I don't think is going to get quoted in many of her essays. But I was surprised to learn. She was like, okay, this is like objectively ridiculous in terms of visually ridiculous. Yeah. But she was like, they're dead on. That Spartan society, all of the stuff they're saying, and the history of that battle of Thermopylae, she's like, oh no, this is all pretty much correct.
Nice.
It's kind of got really baroque and weird and big.
Yeah.
Comic booky. But she's like, suddenly we were comparing it to the Brad Pitt movie Troy, and she's like, well, it's a lot better, it's a lot more faithful to the source material than Troy was.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's interesting, yeah.
Well, I did buy a movie as a bonus answer at the weekend. I saw on the shelves. I bought it, and I've never heard of it. It's called Behold a Pale Horse. Do we know about this movie?
I feel I've heard that title, but I don't know.
So Fred Zinnemann, who directed Day of the Jackal and a bunch of other big movies in the 60s and 70s, was amazing. Anthony Quinn, Gregory Peck, Omar Sharif.
Wow.
In a movie based on a novel by Emmerich Pressburger, Powell and Pressburger.
Right. Wow.
Never heard.
Stacked. No. I've never heard it at all. No. Oh, well,
And so I was like, I need to buy this because it's like it's got. This movie should surely be enormously famous.
Although, was it the equivalent to, you know how sometimes you see DVDs or streaming movies that have like, they've got 3 brilliant actors in it, and then you've never heard of them, but they're obviously just taking a paycheck for doing it.
Financial reasons.
I don't think they were taking a paycheck. I think it was. I did look it up. It didn't do well at the box office, and that is the only thing anyone cares about in Hollywood. So, consequently, because it didn't do great numbers at the box office, it was about the Spanish Civil War.
Right.
And the assumption that was made by the writer, the screenwriter, and the director, apparently, was that people would know more about the Spanish Civil War than they actually did. So the movie opened, and people were like, I don't know what this is about. I don't know what this setting is. And so they didn't go see it. They didn't tell their friends about it. So it didn't do well on its initial run at the box office. And as soon as that happened, no one's interested in releasing it to video. No one's interested in releasing it to DVD. It has not had that resurgence that sometimes movies get, where they become like a cult thing. It never had that. But I think that if that's the reason why it didn't work, then it could still be a good movie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Nice, it could be. Yeah, no, interesting. What about TV? What are you watching on TV at the moment?
I am not watching anything new at the moment. I kind of feel, although I am going to start something tonight, but I feel like I have a theory that streaming, while there have been some amazing shows, as a general rule, has lowered our expectations for television. It's like lowered the bar month on month, year on year, as we're constantly watching new things and just going, what is the new thing this week that I need to watch and talk about on social media? And when you go back and look at stuff like Fringe and the X-Files and Battlestar Galactica, you're like, oh my, these are so much better than the stuff that's on now. And that makes me sound like a granddad, but I think there is good stuff on now. But I don't think people are like, oh, have you seen the new series of Reacher? I'm like, yeah, I have. It's objectively terrible. Like, it doesn't matter whether, it's like, it's just bad. It's badly written. It's badly made. It's badly acted. Stop pretending it's good just because it's new and shiny. So in that vein, I am watching House at the moment, rewatching House, and rewatching Elementary. So I'm doing 2 different versions of Sherlock Holmes at the same time.
Nice.
And they both have ups and downs, but they are both solid procedural story of the week shows, really good writing, really good acting. And it feels like it's becoming a lost art form, that idea of telling a story in 45 minutes.
Yeah, it is true that in modern TV, even the ones that I like of the new shows, you don't get the episodic content. They want to tell a story over 12 episodes or something like that.
And often they don't have 12 episodes worth of story.
Yeah.
Yes.
True.
And I've had this note from all of the streamers when I've been working for them. It's like, can we slow it down? And it's like, no, let's put more into it.
Yeah,
why are we slowing the pace of this thing? Because you've got 4 hours worth of story you want to fit into 8 episodes. Don't get 8 episodes. We'll do what we used to do on stuff like Spooks, which is basically go, how do I fit 2 episodes worth of story into this?
Yeah. I have to say, it's one of the things I'm loving about Strange New Worlds, the Star Trek show, the new one, which is it's very much back to the episodic story of the week, and it feels so refreshing. Even though
I
it's
have
nothing
not done
new,
Strange New Worlds because I was about to start. I started Strange New Worlds when I don't know what's going on. Then realised I should probably watch Discovery. And got sucked into a Discovery wormhole, which I like Discovery.
Okay, fair enough. I'm not a massive fan of it.
I say that I've stopped watching because we arrived in a season where they've jumped 1,000 years into the future,
I would say and
I stopped caring.
I agree with that. I say the season 2 is probably the peak of it, and that's enough to give you the Pike backstory to watch Strange New Worlds, and that's...
Is it?
Yes, 100%. He's not in it anymore, so that's... That's pure
setup.
Done.
So I'm now with Michael, and Michael's 1,000 years in the future, and
doesn't
that's
matter.
fine.
Michael's boring.
Okay, so
Michael
Mike was the thing that I was there for. Yeah.
Excellent.
I went to Strange New Worlds then.
Yeah, I think you'll like it. It feels very much like the old school. Here's a musical episode. Here's a funny episode.
I like a procedural show if
really
they're done well.
Yeah. Well, the very, very last thing we always do is a super quick fire, either or, and there's no right answer here apart from one of them at the end. But let's start off with TV shows or audio dramas.
TV to consume.
Yes, yeah.
TV shows.
Okay. Well, linked to this, I suppose. TV or cinema?
Cinema.
Night owl or early bird?
Early bird. There used to be a night owl. Early bird now.
Music or no music when you write?
Good question. Mostly music. Specific music, but I can write in silence, and I can also write to one of those weird Atmos background, cafe background soundtracks. But not silence. I mean, I live on a junction, so silence is not something that's ever been afforded me anyway. But no, I don't think silence. Always some kind of music.
Yeah.
And the last one, a real paper book or an ebook?
I much prefer a real paper book, but what I have taken to doing is using this thing, which is it's called a book. By a company called Books. It's a Chinese company. So it's a smaller e-reader than a Kindle. And what I've taken to doing is it allows me to get into a big hardback book and to double up by being able to take that same book on the tube with me on an e-reader. So no, as a general rule, unless I'm on a plane or on holiday or something, I want a real book. Mm-hmm. But I don't always want to carry around with me.
Nice, fair enough. Well, that was a really fantastic chat. Really enjoyed that. Super nice guy, really open. And as you say, Mark, at the very start of the episode, we really do go everywhere with that chat. I think we hit a lot of topics. AI, his views on AI, I thought were really interesting. A lot of people kind of are viewing it as a doom and gloom. This is going to be the end of creative industries, etc. in a lot of ways, but he doesn't think it's there yet at all in that in the sense
and
of being able to
I think
recreate.
he's right about that. I think it's.
I think he is right. I agree with that.
I think it's definitely oversold.
100%.
It obviously has functions in some aspects that it can do, but also I think AI as a term is misused as well.
Yes, I feel it's like a marketing term. It's not. Great,
exactly. There is obviously AI in medical fields and stuff that is massively useful and helpful.
And as he says, when it's used like that as a tool, or for making something in Photoshop run a bit quicker, or simplify steps that you normally have to do yourself, that kind of thing, I think is a great tool. Like everything else, like using Microsoft Word, or there's no reason why AI. That's that type of AI.
But actually getting it to create something, that's where the line is. That's what it's rubbish at as well.
Exactly. It's just language models predicting what the next word's going to be, and it's not that singularity. There's no intelligence there that people think about when the phrase AI is used. I feel it is misleading to call things AI.
Yeah, it's obviously a hot AI topic, and there's probably many people watching this going, "No, it's really great." But
yes, but they're wrong.
Yeah, but we're the ones recording this, so we'll.
Yes, this is our kingdom, and we're right.
And also, I loved his story about Hugh Jackman as well. Just incredible to be that close to making basically what sounded like Hugh Jackman's first feature or whatever.
Yeah, and just
very early in his career.
And just another great example of how difficult it is to get things made for TV and film. Like how many things have to line up, how many people involved have to be in the right spot for financing, for availability, for crew, etc. Yeah, it's just I didn't really appreciate until doing this podcast actually how difficult it is to get stuff done compared to books. That's hard enough, but it seems like a next level difficult stuff getting things made.
No, definitely it's a whole different thing. You're dealing with so many different people that have to say yes, I think is the main issue. But so you really enjoyed that chat. As I said at the start, as we said at the start, Lovecraft Investigations. If you haven't listened to the Lovecraft Investigations, even if you're not sure about Lovecraftian stories and stuff, give it a listen, because it is just a brilliant format, and it's a great sort of fun investigative show. So give that a listen, and when you have given it a listen, check out the Kickstarter as well, because I'm sure that's going to be brilliant as well. Absolutely. I have already backed it, and I'll put a link in the podcast description, so you can do that if you want to as well. But next week we have another brilliant guest.
We do indeed. Next week we're chatting with the wonderful Andrew Hunter Murray of, famous for writing for QI.
Yep. No Such Thing as a Fish podcast.
No Such Thing as a Fish. Private Eye. He's a real big in the kind of satirical, political news world. He's written books. The Last Day was his his debut sci-fi climate change novel about the world stops turning. And what happens at that
quite
point
surprising, the books that he first broke through with, because they're not the comedy books that you would associate them with.
They're more serious, kind of Blake Crouchy or Michael Crichton-y, that kind of like
sort of
a concept and then speculative sci-fi fiction stuff. Yeah, exactly.
But his latest book, A Beginner's Guide to Breaking and Entering, definitely is more on the humorous side, while also, looking at a serious issue in society as well, but with a more humorous bent to it, I guess. And again, it's a genuinely fun chat with Andrew. He's such an interesting guy. So please do tune in for that one next week, because it's a good episode, if we do say so ourselves. Nothing to do with us, entirely to do with Andrew. Before we go, just wanted to mention, for those that don't know, and even for those that do know, we do have a Patreon that you can support us on, which helps us to continue to get these great guests on the podcast and continue to make the podcast. With the help of the Patreon, we hope to do more video episodes and more different types of episodes as well. You can support us on there. You can even just join for free, join the Discord, but if you support us, you get early access to episodes, you get bonus episodes, you get so we're starting a new thing where some of our guests will give us a little bonus bit of the podcast on there that will be exclusive to our Patreon backers as well. So there's all sorts of goodies on there, so please do check out the Patreon if that's of interest. If you did enjoy today's episode, please do take the time to rate and review us on your favourite podcast app, as that helps us to continue to get great guests on the podcast as well.
Absolutely. And if you want to get in touch the old-fashioned methods, you can, of course. I say old-fashioned methods because now things like email are old-fashioned, perhaps. God only knows how old writing letters are. But send us an email to podcast@rightgear.co.uk, or find us on pretty much every usual decent social media site. Just search for @rightgear.
No. At UK Page One.
UK Page One.
It's only been 2 weeks or something, Tarek.
I know, I've absolutely lost the thread of it all. Or go onto YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube,
leave
us a comment down below.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Like and subscribe and all that usual stuff you're supposed to do in YouTube shows. I don't really do it myself. I don't really know what to do.
Exactly. But we better go now before Tarek forgets everything. So
where am I?
Have a great week, and we will speak to you next episode.
See you later.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode like these ones down here.
And if you want to get in touch, you can do so by finding us on our social media platforms up here, or drop us a comment way down below there.
But otherwise, thanks for listening, and join us for the next episode.
See you later.